Hey y'all, welcome to the Redzone Rodeo. I am your co-host Carson, and I'm joined today by my other co-host Rob. And today we are going to be bringing you some great and awesome news and rumors from all across the world of football, especially in regards to the NFL and the UFL. And as this is our seventh episode, we're gonna kind of change things up a little bit. I think one thing that Rob and I decided after doing a number of our videos and breaking them down clip wise is how to restructure the show in a way that is, interesting to everybody, but also at the same time isn't just giving you kind of repetitive knowledge of what you're hearing all around the league, and including it in ways that are going to be super fun and enjoyable to come back and listen to us and hang out with us every single week when we produce these videos. So let us know down in the comments what you think about our new kind of switching up of the show with our different added kind of themes and whatnot we're doing, and let us know if you have any ideas as well. But today we're going to be breaking down the show in kind of four segments. And our first segment, which we are going to be titling our Redzone Rodeo 8 Seconds of Fame, kind of going back toward the term rodeo that we're using in our name, as the 8 Seconds of Fame is the most dangerous 8 seconds in sports, as some say. Well, we're going to call this segment the most dangerous 8 seconds in football. And this whole segment is going to be based around giving you all of the news headlines that you may have heard or may have missed, all in a condensed format. So just kind of going by one after another, letting you know everything that is happening in the world of football that we can cover up into this day of us recording. Our second format is going to be called and titled the Redzone Rodeo Go Around. And what we're basically going to be breaking down with this is we're going to be taking some rumors, some different ideas, certain concepts in terms of players being traded, how they're going to play, how things are going to turn out. And we're going to go into a format where we're basically going to debate these topics. What do we feel about them? Are these absurd kind of takes that we have on these certain kind of elements, or other kind of top people around the league are saying about some players and teams and whatnot, or are they reasonable? We're going to kind of break that down. We're also going to be bringing you a kind of a ranking system, top 5, top 10s every week, maybe multiple per week. And we're going to be titling this segment the Redzone Rodeo Rowdy Rankings. And so we're super excited to kind of start breaking down, giving you our own personal opinions on who we think are, for example, the best teams logos, or who are going to be some top players people should go out and think about signing, who are going to be dangerous teams in the next upcoming seasons, stuff like that. We're going to break those down. And we're going to conclude the show with some kind of humor, some ironic kind of stuff, looking back on our own selves and our own takes, but really kind of going around the league. And of course, there's a lot that's said about the sport of football. There's a lot that's said about different trades, different players, how they're going to do in new rosters, who they should keep, they should re-sign, what teams should do, all of that stuff. And there's some really hilarious takes throughout the entire social media world. So we're going to be taking some of those. We're going to be highlighting some of them in our feature, the Redzone Rodeo Clowns of the Week. So not only are we going to, look back on some of our kind of foolish more takes that we've had on certain players and what we thought, but we're also going to be, commenting on what is being said around the league, and, do we agree with them, or do we think it's, they're just another rodeo clown? So that's going to kind of be our format moving forward. And of course, as I mentioned before, we're going to get right into things, but just wanted to do a quick breakdown for you, and let you know that, we're going to be shifting some things up with this show. Wanted to bring you still the awesome and amazing content that we're dedicated to bringing you weekly, but doing it in a way that's in a format that's fun and enjoyable for all, to keep coming back to for week after week after week after week. So, As I mentioned again, if you have any questions or comments or things that we should do or add, let us know down in the comment section. We love to hear from you. And of course, anything that you may have thought wise will be helpful for us moving forward and how we want to present the show and how we want to kind of, continue to bring you all awesome news and uh, just anything related to football in general. So without further ado, Rob, is there anything that I missed before we jump right on in?
Nope, I think you covered it all. I think we should
All
get.
right. Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to jump into our Redzone Rodeo 8 seconds of fame. So first off, we have Russell Wilson. He was recently released by the Broncos, and he will be a pending free agent.
The Buffalo Bills recently released a bunch of notable players, including Jordan Poyer, their starting safety, Mitch Morse, their starting center, Tre'Davious White, one of their starting corners, to make room for future salary cap signings.
Xavier Worthy, you may have heard his name. You may have seen him in the combine draft. Well, he has now set the NFL combine record for 4.21 seconds in the 40-yard dash.
Jerry Jeudy was traded to the Cleveland Browns by the Denver Broncos for only a fifth and sixth round pick.
There's a number of notable running backs that were not franchise tagged during this kind of process. And their names are Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. Going to be super interesting to see where these guys end up.
The NFL tampering period begins tomorrow on March 11th, and that's where teams can make deals with notable free agents, but they don't become official until Wednesday, March 13th, when free agency officially starts.
Tyron Smith has left the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sure Rob is saddened about that.
Absolutely distraught. Another notable cornerstone of the NFC East has left. Eagles defensive tackle Fletcher Cox retired today on March 10th.
And speaking of today, the Chiefs, Chris Jones has signed a 5-year deal, practically giving him $95 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid defensive tackle in the league.
The New England Patriots have finally moved on from quarterback Mac Jones, trading him to the Jacksonville Jaguars for potentially a sixth round pick.
The Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Tyler Lockett has agreed to a 2-year restructured contract worth $30 million.
The Patriots have agreed to terms with tight end Hunter Henry on a 3-year contract, keeping him in New England instead of hitting free agency.
Cornerback Jalen Johnson, a big player with the Chicago Bears on the defensive side. He has agreed to a new 4-year, $76 million contract, keeping him within the building.
The Dolphins recently signed tight end Jonnu Smith to a 2-year, $10 million deal, kind of giving them that tight end weapon they've coveted so long to pair with all those great wide receivers and running backs they have.
The Rams have re-signed guard Kevin Dotson to a 3-year deal. Another guy there to keep protecting Matthew Stafford.
The Chiefs re-signed linebacker Drew Tranquil to a 3-year, $19 million deal, which is kind of sad as a Cowboys fan to see because he was a linebacker I really would have liked to see them get.
Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback most recently for the Steelers, has agreed to terms with the Buffalo Bills, and he is going to be starting his new contract for 2 years, $5 million for the 2024 season.
Zach Ertz, tight end Zach Ertz, is now back in the NFC East, signing a 1-year deal with the Washington Commanders, and he will see his old team, the Philadelphia Eagles, twice a year.
The Philadelphia Eagles has also agreed to terms with Brandon Graham on a 1-year contract, and he's going to be coming back for his 15th season in Philadelphia.
The Ravens handed out a historic contract to their breakout defensive tackle from last season, Justin Madubuike, giving him a 4-year, $98 million extension after placing the franchise tag on him.
Shifting things over into the land of the United Football League, the new spring league, 2-time USFL champion for the Birmingham Stallions, running back Bo Scarborough, has announced his retirement from the UFL and football. I wish him all the best, and he played wonderfully in those 2 initial seasons for the USFL in the 21st century. Sad to see him go, but hope he does some great things in the near future.
The UFL announced a partnership with Under Armour for all their gear and jerseys and stuff like that. And they also revealed a bunch of images of their uniforms for the 2024 season.
During the past couple days and in the near future, teams in the UFL have been competing against each other in joint practices.
The DC Defenders traded edge rusher Chauncey Rivers to the Birmingham Stallions for offensive tackle Jameer Ross Johnson. Rivers spent the 2023 XFL season with the Houston Roughnecks, totaling 16 tackles and 2.5 sacks in 10 games, whereas Ross Johnson appeared in 8 games, starting 5 at offensive tackle for the Stallions in the 2023 USFL season.
Today on March 10th, when we are recording this, the UFL teams will be cutting their rosters from 75 personnel to 57.
Notable UFL wide receiver Ja'Cour Pearson, who was one of the best receivers in the XFL last year and is now on the Battlehawks, suffered a knee injury that will keep him out of the league for at least 6 weeks.
All righty, folks. There you have it. That is your 8 seconds of fame, Redzone Rodeo, breaking you down all of the news headlines that have been coming out the past couple days, including today, in a nice, concise format. So you guys can stay up with everything that may have happened. You may have already heard some of these bigger names that have been signed, franchise tagged, injured, hurt, whatever that might be. But of course, we want to come and bring you this kind of quick and easy format. So if you miss something, hey, we're keeping you up to date. Moving on, we're going to be going to our Redzone Rodeo go around, and we're going to be starting to break down some topics. So, Rob, first of all, to start us out, should the Eagles trade Reddick and Josh Sweat and want to sign Bryce Huff? Should they? Do you think that's a reasonable or absurd take?
I think that's a reasonable take. I think that's a buckle winner right there. I think Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat really did not provide a lot of pass rush for the Eagles down the stretch last year. I think signing Bryce Huff, who is one of the best pass rushers in the league, would be a huge boon to that defense. Um, I know recently it was reported that the Eagles are trying to shop both Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick, and they want to sign Bryce Huff in free agency. I think that would be a brilliant move to kind of retool that defense and gain some draft capital for players who weren't producing at necessarily the highest level last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that this is a buckle winner take, a reasonable take, just because the Eagles, they have a lot of figuring out to do. And whether it's talking about offensive or defense side of the ball, they need to start figuring out, first of all, what happened last season with their fall off. Are these players going to be able to help them not rebuild, but help them kind of overcome that process leading into next season? Or, if not, do you want to go out and get someone who will make a difference on your team? And I think that that's really a question that the Eagles are thinking about and definitely should pull the trigger on, because you want to come out in the 2024 season and you want to come out go all cylinders. You don't want to have people thinking, oh, well, it continues the losing streak, the falling apart that we all saw the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to come out and you want to make a difference. And sometimes, shifting up the roster a little bit, getting rid of guys who may have were average or underperformed, and signing big weapons, big names, guys who are going to make a difference day one, starting this 2024 season. And so absolutely, I think this is a buckle winner take.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Huff is a name that a lot of fans don't necessarily know because he was a rotational player for the Jets last year. But he had one of the highest pass rush win rates in the entire league, and he's done that consistently now for several years. He's been at the top of the charts in that. He's a really bad run defender, though, which is why he was a rotational player for the Jets. But I can tell you, as a Cowboys fan, my worst nightmare is that the Eagles trade Reddick and Josh Sweat for like a bunch of draft capital, sign Bryce Huff, and then have Nolan Smith on the other end of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. That would be horrific to me. I hope they don't do that, but I think they will end up doing that because I think that'd be really smart for them to do. Carson, staying in the NFC East, There have been a lot of rumors floating around that the Giants are done with Daniel Jones and that they're really interested in JJ McCarthy. Jason La Canfora reported that the Giants might even be interested in trading up to draft JJ McCarthy. So I'm going to tell you this. I think JJ McCarthy is a great quarterback, and I believe the Giants should draft JJ McCarthy in the first round.
So I think that this take is absurd. This is a bucked off take. And the reason why I'm thinking this way is that I do not think that the Giants are going to be drafting JJ McCarthy super high in the first round. Um, they're already sitting at number 6, and there's been some rumors that they could even likely trade up to 4 with the Arizona Cardinals to take this guy. I honestly think this is a bunch of hogwash. And the reason why is I understand the concerns at quarterback that the Giants have, but you're dealing with a guy who you're paying a bunch of money, Daniel Jones, already. Um, and even if he is going to be not your starter in terms of the longevity of the season, who knows how many games he's going to start. It's you kind of have to start him. You're already paying the money. You kind of have to be like, you know what, we gotta see if this guy can do it. And of course, last season he was hurt. The offensive line struggles for the Giants, just offensive, other than really Saquon Barkley, and later in the season, Jalen Hyatt with their rookie wide receiver. There was no offensive production going on, and a lot of that came down to their offensive line. And so I think for the Giants going up and drafting JJ McCarthy very high, it could be an easy fix to the quarterback position, but I think you're going to be bringing in a young guy like JJ McCarthy into the same situation that Daniel Jones failed in. And then you have to ask yourself the question, is Daniel Jones a worse quarterback, or I'm sorry, is JJ McCarthy a better quarterback than Daniel Jones? Or are they both being flung into situations where they have no protection? They have no, they're running for their lives most of the time, setting them up for injury. And as a Titans fan, I kind of know this struggle. And especially with the Titans drafting Will Levis last year, we're getting this young kid in the building. He seems like he has the ability to go out and do some great things, potentially being the franchise quarterback for the team. But last season we couldn't protect him. Our offensive line was so bad, and he was as a rookie, not even playing a whole season. He went down with a couple injuries, and I think that's something that the Giants are taking into consideration. And I really do believe that with their first round pick, I don't think they're going to be trading up. I think they're going to be taking one of the top offensive tackles to kind of start to stabilize that process, for the defense for that team to protect their quarterback, whoever that might be. Now, could I see them picking JJ McCarthy up later? That's a possibility I could see, but I do think JJ McCarthy is going to be off the board later round 1. So I think the Giants are going to miss their opportunity to draft him, even if they are high on them. But I do think that this is a bucked off take. This is an absurd take, because of the fact that I think they are more focused on offensive line and trying to rebuild that way.
Okay, so a couple things here. First, I think, do you agree that the Giants need to move on from Daniel Jones, or do you think they should give him another chance this year?
I think that they should move on, but I think they are going to give him another chance this year because of how much money that they're paying him. It's kind of foolish to have him sit on the bench and giving him all those resources without putting him out on the field for at least the first couple season games. But if he doesn't perform, I think he will be done.
See, I think the Giants have already moved on from him because I think
Really,
I know you said about the whole supporting cast was really bad last year and everything, but they put out Teddy Bridgewater and they put out Tommy DeVito, and they both performed better than Daniel Jones
that's
with the
true.
same
Yeah,
supporting cast, or even a worse supporting cast because there were
yeah.
more injuries to the team as the year went on. If you're being outperformed by Tommy DeVito and Teddy Bridgewater, not Teddy Bridgewater, was it Teddy? No, it was Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor. Yeah.
Okay. If you're being outperformed by Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito, I feel like that's kind of a sign that you're not the quarterback of the future. You're not the guy that the team wants to build around. And because of that, I think the Giants have already made the decision to move on from Daniel Jones. And the question now is just how. I
Yeah.
think most years I would not have JJ McCarthy as a guy that's worthy of being taken in the top 10. But if you're the Giants and JJ McCarthy is the quarterback that you like in this draft class, and you think you can take him and make him your franchise quarterback, I feel like you don't really have a choice. You have to take him at number 6, or maybe even trade up to get him at number 4. Because Carson, it's like you said, he's not going to make it out of the first round. There's just too many teams this year that need a quarterback. We'll see what happens in free agency with Kirk, and we'll see if the Bears trade Justin Fields. But there are a lot of teams out there that need a quarterback, and I think at least 5 are going to go in the first round this year. So if the Giants believe JJ McCarthy is their guy, if they think he's the one, they're going to have to take him in the first round. Maybe that'll involve like a small trade back. Maybe that'll be the route they go. But I don't think it's bucked off take at all to say that JJ McCarthy could be the Giants' first round pick this year.
I would continue to push back against that just because I think for the Giants, yes, they kind of do need the quarterback, but I think that there is some other cheaper uh veteran players that are out there, especially with in regards to Russell Wilson. I think that, with Russell Wilson, most of his contract being paid still by the Broncos, there is a possibility the Giants could pick him up for relatively cheap and they could throw him in there and he can be kind of the mediator of like, okay, well, if Daniel Jones doesn't work out these first couple games, or even if they've moved on completely from him, they can throw that guy in there for the season, maybe a 2-year deal. I don't know what they're gonna necessarily look like doing, but even getting Russell Wilson in the building to potentially start to rebuild the team, because the Giants have so many holes and quarterback's just one of them. But I don't know if the Giants should give up so much revenue to trade up 2 spaces to take JJ McCarthy. And the other thing I also wanted to say too, in regards to this, is I think that some of these other later first round picks, as I would kind of put them, in such like Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and JJ McCarthy, I think there's a lot of hype with them recently based on what they were able to do in the combine. But I think that right now it's being overhyped. And I think these 3 guys, even though people are projecting them to be taken early in the first round, I don't think that that's going to be really reasonable. I do think they'll be later in the first round as Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I think those are going to be the top 3 guys. So having JJ McCarthy be this like number 4 quarterback for the Giants, to like whether they're taking him at 6 or trading up for 4, I think for the Giants, I think you're already hurting in a stuck situation with Daniel Jones. That why give up more assets to potentially move up 2 spots or potentially draft a rookie guy when you're just bringing him right back into a situation that, is he going to be better than Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, or Tommy DeVito? There's a likelihood, but I think those challenges are still going to exist. And, I think there's also cheaper alternatives out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree that drafting JJ McCarthy at that spot isn't what I would do in that situation. Like, I don't think it's smart. I don't think JJ McCarthy is the 4th best quarterback in this draft class. If anything, I think that's what's bucked off, is having JJ
Yeah.
McCarthy as your 4th best quarterback. In my opinion, it's clearly Michael Penix Jr. But if the Giants are that sold on him, they are professional like football player evaluators, and I'm not, obviously. So
Yeah.
who's to say my take is better than theirs? If they're that sold on JJ McCarthy, then I think you have to take him in the first round. If you're that sold on him and you're that done with Daniel Jones, like a lot of these reports are suggesting. But if I were the Giants, I think what I would do is I would sign Russell Wilson or someone like that to like a 1 or 2 year deal, and I would draft a wide receiver with that first pick, Romo Dunze or Malik
Okay.
Neighbors, because I know the Giants for years now have been trying to find a wide receiver one. Even ever since Odell left, they have not had like that wide receiver one, like guy that you just know you have to cover. And I think the Giants are desperately wanting to find someone like that. And Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, if either of them are available at that pick, would be the answer to that problem that they've had for so long. So if I'm the Giants, if JJ McCarthy isn't the guy, I think I would be taking Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors at that spot.
Yeah, no, I mean that's certainly fair. That's always I think the question, and it's a big question that even, as a Titans fan, the Titans community is kind of arguing about. Do we go tackle at 7 or wide receiver at 7, or best off the board? And I think that, you start to enter this dilemma with, if your offensive line is shaky and it doesn't do a great job of protecting whoever it is that's going to be your quarterback, it's difficult to it, not saying it's a waste of a pick, but if you bring in a wide receiver, who knows if that wide receiver is going to be able to make the difference if there's continuous defensive players in that quarterback's face, forcing him to run out of the pocket, forcing him to make quick, more fast decisions that, may not be, oh, that's the guy I'm trying to get to in this route. That's what I'm trying to get to. Kind of shaking things up a little bit. Or do you go the tackle? Do you build that line? You deal with kind of mediocrity on in terms of the wide receiver room. And so that's a constant struggle. And I'm still split. Because as much as it would be great to have the Titans bring in an offensive alignment and really refix this offensive line, I would love to see Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze in the building as an offensive weapon for Will Levis. So absolutely, I do agree with you in terms of like, do you go wide receiver? Do you go offensive lineman? Or, do you feel like JJ McCarthy is your guy? I think that's a bucked off take that they should draft JJ McCarthy. I think there's better options for them for the long term in this rebuild because the Giants aren't going to be, picking up a guy and winning tomorrow. So I think for the longevity, drafting JJ McCarthy might not benefit you as well as drafting that offensive tackle or the wide receiver, as you said.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I don't think they should draft JJ McCarthy because I'm not sold on JJ McCarthy. I don't think you're sold on JJ McCarthy. I don't think most people are really. Um, but if they really believe he's the next franchise guy, if he's the next Eli Manning, I can understand why they would make that selection, even though I would
Absolutely.
personally disagree with it very strongly.
Yeah. So moving things off of the Daniel Jones, JJ McCarthy, rumor mill, uh, we're going to be talking about this kind of thought that has been going around the NFL that they are considering implementing an 18 game season, so extending the season one more game. Rob, what do you think of this and this take? Should the NFL implement an 18-game season?
Yeah, Carson, I think that's a total buckle winner right there. I mean, it seems like it's pretty likely to happen. Like a lot of the NFL officials were mentioning that it seems like this idea is going to move forward. And the way it's going to work is not only will they add another game, they're going to add another bye week. So the season will go from being 18 weeks long to 20 weeks long. I love football, so the longer football season is, the better, in my opinion. And a lot of the
Absolutely.
players and the Players Association love this too because adding an extra game, you think they might be opposed to that, but that extra bye week is huge for them. It'll give the players multiple chances to recover and have like a week off during the season. So it's kind of like a win-win for the players because they get an extra week off, and it's a win for the fans in the league because there's more football to watch, more games that happen, and obviously that'll make the NFL more money because there's more games to broadcast. I just think it's an all-around win-win-win. Like there's really no loser here, and I just think this is like the ultimate buckle winner idea. And I really hope they finalize this decision before the season starts this year, so we can have 20 weeks of regular season football this year.
Absolutely. I agree. I think this is a buckle winner take right here too, that the NFL should implement an 18 game season. With the longevity of it, it looks like that the Super Bowl weekend would be even on President's weekend. So with that being the case, a lot of people, I know not everywhere gets President's Day off, but that could be something that's super big because the Super Bowl would be on pretty much a 3 day weekend for a lot of people. And with that being the case, you have more time to like really just, have a good time, have a party, just, it would be super fabulous for them to have and incorporate that into kind of the NFL season. And then of course ending with the playoffs and the Super Bowl. It just kind of lines up perfectly. And I agree. More football, the better. And I absolutely love the idea of 2 bye weeks, giving the players rest, and also time to get over some injuries. I know that was the biggest concern with this is like, okay, if we're elongating the season, what does this mean in terms of player health and player longevity? And I think that's a fair question. I think that's something that's definitely at the heart of deciding whether or not to go for this or continue with the same process. But I do feel like adding those extra bye weeks in, of course, you can't completely avoid injury. Like that's the unfortunate nature of the sport. I think this is a win-win-win-win for everybody, as you said, Rob. So absolutely, I think this is a buckle winner take. I really hope the NFL implements this, and I think it would be great for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely my favorite thing that the NFL has proposed this offseason. I really hope it gets done. Shifting gears here, Carson.
Okay.
Uh, One of the biggest free agents this year is Saquon Barkley, the running back for the New York Giants, who's likely not returning to them.
Mm.
Rumors have been saying that, the three teams that are the biggest contenders for him are the Bears, the Chargers, and the Ravens. I think the Ravens are the best landing spot for Saquon Barkley. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a buckle winner take. I think that's very reasonable. I think out of the three that you mentioned with the Bears, Chargers, and the Ravens, I think that the Ravens have the best. Not that it's all about supporting cast, but they have the best weapons on their offense to really give Saquon the best ability to shine in a league where, or on a team where in the past with the Giants, he's been kind of the only thing. And how many times have defenses, really shut him down because of the fact that they are like, well, the Giants don't have like a passing game. So we can have a couple guys watching what Barkley does. And so I think that, within being on a team like the Ravens, obviously, the Chargers and the Bears would be good spots, but I think the Ravens would be the best. You have a dynamic quarterback, a dual threat quarterback in Lamar Jackson. So you're already trying to shut down his run lane, his pass lane. Now you're adding Saquon Barkley to the mix. Oh my goodness, what is the defense going to do? And you have, the wide receiver room is great. Mark Andrews at tight end. You have just so many weapons. And I feel like the Ravens could turn into the 49ers of last season offensively, but even better because of the fact that they have Lamar Jackson, who has proved his ability in the season. I will like to put out in the season, struggle in the playoffs a little bit, but in the season, I would even say more than Brock Purdy, where he's had to overcome some teams around him that maybe weren't the best, but we've seen him thrive. And so bringing Saquon Barkley in onto the Ravens would be a win-win for not only Barkley, but also the Ravens. You're bringing in a dynamic weapon at running back, someone that would be better than anyone you've had on your roster for a little bit now. And also, this would be a great opportunity for Barkley to basically prove that he is a top running back in this league. And be able to kind of show that on a broad scale, have the ability to go make a Super Bowl run with this team, whereas the Giants would not or do not really have the ability to do so this season. Anything can happen, of course, with that being said. But yeah, absolutely. I think the Ravens are the best landing spot for Saquon. And yeah, what do you think, Rob? Do you think this is a buckle winner or a bucked off take?
I think this is a buckle winner, but ultimately, I think the decision he makes is going to come down to what he values the most. If it's money,
Absolutely.
then he's not going to the Baltimore Ravens. He's going to the
Yep.
Chicago Bears, in my opinion, because they have a ton of cap space. They could definitely give him a big contract that he probably wants. But if it's
Mhm.
winning, he is getting up there in terms of age for a running back, especially. I feel like the Ravens are the buckle winner. That's the team that's going to give you a chance to compete right away. They have a great roster. They have a loaded defense. They have a really brilliant young wide receiver in Zay Flowers. They have a good offensive line. They have two great young tight ends. They have obviously a superstar MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson. I mean, if you want to go somewhere where you're going to be able to go win a Super Bowl and put your name in the record books, I really don't know if there's a better team in the entire NFL for Saquon to go to than the Baltimore Ravens. And the fact that they have a lot of interest in him, I think that's amazing for Saquon. And if I was him, I would certainly go to the Baltimore Ravens. I think that would be so much fun to see a running back with that sort of talent next to Lamar Jackson in the same backfield. It'd be really scary for any opposing defense to try and game plan for him, and it would just add another dimension to that offense that they have. Um, but like I said, it'll depend. What does he want? Does he want money or does he want a chance to win the Super Bowl? You know, and maybe the Bears, if they go draft Caleb Williams, maybe that makes Saquon Barkley think they're a Super Bowl contender now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could see any of these teams being contenders. Getting the chance to go play with Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Uh, you know, any one of these teams, I feel like could make the case that they're Super Bowl contenders this coming season, especially if the Bears draft Caleb. But if you want the best chance, it's by far the Baltimore Ravens. So
Yeah.
absolutely this.
Yeah. Not to continuously say what I've been saying, but I do think is we've been talking that the Ravens are the best match. And especially if Barkley wants to pursue, uh, you know, the distinction of winning a Super Bowl, I think is really big in the minds of players. And of course, I know that money is a big factor as well. But for the Ravens and Saquon Barkley to be able to come jointly together and be like, the Ravens win because you bring in a dynamic running back. Saquon wins because this gives you the best shot, especially on paper, if you're looking at it. Because, of course, with the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh being hired, obviously great coach in college, has some NFL experience. We still need to see what he's able to do in the NFL. It may be great things, as people are saying, there may be some times where there may be some mess ups, some mistakes, some just blown calls and blown whatever. And so yet the Chargers have a great opportunity, but there still is some question marks in regards to that team. And of course, you nailed it on the head with Chicago. If they're bringing in a rookie quarterback, um, obviously Caleb Williams is everyone he's what's hyped up to be. There's still that question mark. What will he do in the season? How will he translate to the NFL? Which, from this point, it seems like he will be doing great things in the NFL just based on how high everyone is viewing him. But still, there's question marks. Is there going to be a growing curve? You're walking in, you may have the most money with Chicago, but you know, you may miss out on your time window for winning a Super Bowl. And I think that's really a big question for a lot of these players. And I know, especially as a Titans fan, with everything regarding Derrick Henry in free agency, having a dynamic running back on the Ravens is almost unfair to NFL defenses. And so bringing in someone like Saquon Barkley all automatically ups the stock in terms of the Ravens being potentially Super Bowl favorites, in terms of the roster itself. The Bears, I don't know if you would get that. I think obviously it would change a couple things. I think they would be highly ranked, but in terms of, winning that ultimate goal, which is any fan, any player, any coach, they want to see their team win the Super Bowl. That's the ultimate goal. And so if that's the direction you want to trend in, I think, the Ravens being the best landing spot for Saquon Barkley, that's a buckle winner right there.
Yeah, totally agree. That's absolutely a buckle winner.
All right, Rob, what do you think about this? Russell Wilson will win a playoff game as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I think that's a buckle winner. I think the Steelers are by far the most likely team to land Russell Wilson as their new quarterback. He spent hours there with them. The other day when he was visiting the Giants and then the Steelers, he spent by far the most time with the Steelers. So I think it's very likely that that's where he ends up. I think the Steelers, we talked about this last week. The Steelers have a great roster. They
Yep.
have good wide receivers, good tight ends. Their offensive line is coming together. They have great running backs. Their defense is phenomenal. They add a quarterback that can really throw the ball well into that mix. I think they're instantly a playoff contender. And I think they're certainly capable of winning a playoff game. So for my money right now, I would bet that Russell Wilson will win a playoff game as a Pittsburgh Steeler this season. That's a buckle winner.
Yeah, I agree. I think honestly, the two teams I have in mind with Russell Wilson is the Steelers and the Giants. And I know we briefly mentioned, potentially the Giants bringing him in, being really cheap. But in terms of, Russell Wilson, where does he want to play? potentially with the best ability to resurrect his career because right now there's rumors going around that the Russell Wilson deal is the worst trade in NFL history. I don't agree with that. Maybe we can, debate that on another Red Zone Rodeo go around, but I think that his time in Denver was certainly nothing compared to what he was able to accomplish in Seattle. And so I think he's looking for the ability to revitalize his career, to show that, hey, you know what? I am still a great quarterback that has a shot at potentially the Hall of Fame, depending on what he does with these next couple seasons that nearing the end of his career. Right now, if he's going the trajectory with the Broncos and how not so great he was doing, you might miss it. So I think for again both sides, not only the Pittsburgh Steelers bringing in a veteran quarterback to kind of maybe help Kenny Pickett in a way, because I really do think that the Steelers are just so locked in on Kenny Pickett. It's almost like it's they're blinded by this kind of notion of like Kenny Pickett, he's a Pittsburgh guy. He has to work. Um, Bringing in a veteran guy could help kind of undo maybe some of those mistakes, maybe help him shape into a better quarterback. You never know. But I think starting the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers with Kenny Pickett as your guy and Mason Rudolph, that's not going to guarantee you a lot of success. And bringing in a veteran like Russell Wilson with the roster around him already that's already been built, it's a win-win. And so I agree. I think this is a buckle winner take. I think Russell Wilson will win a playoff game as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he will break the slump of Steelers making the playoffs barely, but not making it further.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about the impact that Russell Wilson would have on Kenny Pickett. You're right. He might absolutely help revive Kenny Pickett's career, get him set on the right track. The way the Jets were hoping Aaron Rodgers would help Zach Wilson, before his injury.
Yeah.
Um, I will say I saw a report. I think it was from Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN that said not Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders are also a serious contender for Russell Wilson, which makes sense because they're picking a little later in the draft, and obviously they need a quarterback right now because Jimmy Garoppolo did not work out.
Mm-mm.
So that's another team I would keep my eye on. But for my money, he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for sure. I think that will be absolutely phenomenal for them. Going to another big free agent quarterback, seems like Kirk Cousins will be going to one of two teams right now. A lot of the rumors say he's either going to go back to the Vikings or he will be going to the Atlanta Falcons. It seems like those are the two teams that are really competing for his services, and there's about a 50-50 chance, according to a lot of these like NFL insiders, about where Kirk Cousins is going to end up. But I think that Kirk Cousins is going to want a fresh start with a young roster and a new coach. So I believe Kirk Cousins will be an Atlanta Falcon, Carson.
I think that's a buckle winner take. I think that's very reasonable. I know, of course, with the Vikings and the Falcons, it seems like, as the two major teams kind of battling over to retain Kirk Cousins or bring him into the building. I really think Kirk Cousins will be an Atlanta Falcon. I think that, the Vikings are at a stage where within the division, they kind of have their backs up against the wall. Everybody else in their division, the Green Bay Packers have Jordan Love. They seem to be trending upwards. Chicago Bears are most likely going to be drafting this franchise talent level college, guy in Caleb Williams. Already have a great supporting cast, maybe not great, a good supporting cast. They're going to be probably upgrading this season. They're on the rise with the Packers. The Lions, don't need an explanation. They've proven they're on the rise. Dan Campbell's crew is wrecking it right now. And really looking forward to see what they do next season. But the Vikings are kind of like, what are they doing? Like what's going on? Like, other than really Justin Jefferson and a couple of other players, they've kind of fallen behind. And if they're ever going to be taking the NFC North back and winning that division and being able to go further, I really think for the Vikings, you have to look at yourself and be like, okay, is Kirk Cousins the guy? And I think they've tried that the last couple seasons, but I think the writing's on the wall now. You're seeing your divisional opponents get better in every single way where you're not. And I think that the Vikings are kind of hitting this realization that we have great players, but we don't have enough of them to build a winning roster. And that being the case, how can we start to rebuild? Not maybe a full tear down rebuild process, but how can we build ourselves back up to compete with Jordan Love and the Packers, to compete with potential Caleb Williams and the Bears, to compete with, the Lions, Dan Campbell's crew. So that's, I think, something that they're going to be really looking for in the draft as a quarterback. I would not be surprised if they trade up to potentially 4 and they give away a lot of assets to get their quarterback of the future. And maybe again, and on the same kind of like page, trading Kirk Cousins away, or not trading, but letting Kirk Cousins leave and go to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think, it works both ways, kind of as we've been talking, for the Vikings. I think they kind of are realizing we need to start to rebuild some positions. We need to start to look towards the future, how we're going to compete. We need to bring youth. Kirk Cousins has been a guy in the league for a long time now. Great player, obviously competent quarterback, competent veteran quarterback, top veteran quarterback right now in free agency. But I think the Falcons, if they can't bring in Justin Fields, as that's also been a big rumor, then I think Kirk Cousins is the next best guy. And if Kirk Cousins comes to the Falcons, the difference really, and I guess I should say the positive side for Kirk Cousins coming to the Falcons, is that they play in a super weak division. And we obviously, at this point, we don't know if Baker Mayfield's returning to the Buccaneers. We know Mike Evans has been, re-signed. But in really looking, the Panthers aren't going to be making a splash this year. And you have the Saints that are kind of dealing with their own issues with Derek Carr and some of their other issues that they've had this past season. So Kirk Cousins walking into the Atlanta Falcons room automatically makes them contenders for the division. And not only does that happen, but Kirk Cousins gets another shot at a potential playoff run, maybe even Super Bowl if the Falcons play their cards right. So for Kirk Cousins, who hasn't won the Super Bowl, again, this is a player who's reaching the end of his career. Maybe not next season, maybe not whatever, but still, he's definitely thinking, okay, I haven't won a Super Bowl yet. Where can I go with my talent level and my age and that can give me the best opportunity to winning that game, the game that everyone wants to have on their resume before they retire. So I think this is, again, a win-win situation. This is a buckle winner take. Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons. Both sides win on that. And, it really gives Kirk Cousins options to, show off his talents and really chase another ring, or chase a ring, not another.
Yeah, I mean, think about what the Atlanta Falcons already have in place. They already have Drake London, who's really good, wide receiver 2 / bottom end wide receiver 1. They have Kyle Pitts, who, although he's never really produced in an NFL season, he has all the talent in the world, and he just needs, a quarterback and a coach that will actually get him targets. They got Bijan Robinson, who is an insanely talented running back. That will probably lead the league in rushing multiple times before his career is over. They have a solidifying defense. Their offensive line, it's not perfect, but it'll get the job done. If they go out and add a really good franchise quarterback without having to use any draft capital on one, I think that's huge. Because then you could use your draft capital, which is pretty good this year since they weren't so great, to fill some of those remaining holes. They can go out and get like a legitimate wide receiver 1 to go pair with Drake London. If they do that, I think they should be favorites to win the NFC South and go deep into the playoffs. Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and another wide receiver from the draft this year. I think that would be a nearly unstoppable, super talented offense. And it would be so much fun to watch, but it'd be very scary as a fan of a team that's also in the NFC. I think that's a team that could definitely contend for the Super Bowl. And I really hope the Falcons manage to put it together because, like I said, that would be so much fun to watch happen.
Yeah, and after years of just mediocrity, and honestly, like having that kind of like chip on your shoulder that you were up by so many points against the Patriots in that Super Bowl and you blew it, that like that it's like the 1 yard thing with the Titans. They were 1 yard short to winning their Super Bowl. And how many times have, Titans fans heard like, oh, 1 yard short, you were 1 yard, and Falcons fans must just be livid with how many times they have to hear, well, Tom Brady in a short time basically racked up 20 plus points to win the Super Bowl. It must be tough. And so for the Falcons fan base too, I think this is a win for them because they would then be able to have the hope of rewriting some of those wrongs. Of course, they could never really get over that because it happened. Got to live with it. But you could follow that up with, well, yeah, but we went back and we won it. So, kind of messing with that. So absolutely. So that's a buckle winner take. If I haven't seen one. All right, Rob. This one's gonna hit closer and nearer and dearer to your heart. The Cowboys should trade Dak Prescott.
Oh man, Carson. Okay. So a lot of rumors have been flying around that the Cowboys' plan this year is to let Dak Prescott play out the contract that he has right now, not extend him. And then if he wins the Super Bowl this year, or he at least gets the team to the Super Bowl, then the Cowboys will give him like a huge contract extension. But anything short of that, and they're gonna let him walk. Obviously that's not guaranteed, but that's just what a lot of like NFL insiders are saying right now. A lot of those NFL reporters are saying it. Man, Carson, I think this is a buckle winner take. If
Okay.
the Cowboys' plan is that, I would much rather trade Dak Prescott right now for several first round picks and then use those picks to either go out and get another younger, cheaper quarterback or to build around Trey Lance if that's what Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy think is smartest. I don't think I want Dak to play for us one more year and then just let him walk in free agency and then get nothing in return for him. I feel like that's probably the worst way you could handle this situation. Um, I know his contract might make it really difficult to trade him right now because he's owed like 50, $60 million just this year. He counts that against the cap. So I don't actually know if it would be possible to trade him right now in terms of contract stuff, and he also has a no trade clause in his contract. So any trade is something he would have to approve. So it is near impossible, I would say, to actually successfully trade him to another team. Um, but that being said, they could certainly find a way to do it if they really wanted to. And I think it's something they should at least consider if their plan really is to let Dak Prescott walk after this season. If they really do want to keep Dak Prescott, though, which is what I would prefer happen, then obviously I would say just get an extension done with him now. Don't play this stupid game where you let him play out the season on his 50, $60 million contract hit or whatever it is, and then let him walk after this year. Hopefully that's what they end up doing. They extend him. But right now, with all the information that's coming out, I would say trading him or at least looking into the possibility of trading him and seeing if that's something you could realistically make work is a buckle winner of an idea.
Yeah. Interesting. I did not think you were going to go with that. I thought you were going to be like, "That's absurd. That's a bucked off take. We're not. Nope. We're all in on Dak Prescott." But I completely understand where you're coming from, and I agree. I agree. I think that you know watching Derrick Henry do that um, is really hurting because the Titans aren't going to be able to get anything for him, and so as much as it was awesome to see him play last season and do some Derrick Henry cool things, there's really that question that you brought up is, do you let the contract expire and then just let him walk in free agency? Or do you try to get something for him? And I feel like sometimes with some of those bigger name players, if you're able to get something for him, or maybe, it makes it a little bit better when you're losing some of these guys who you've watched for a little bit now and you absolutely love seeing play. So I absolutely agree. But I think that the real question with this here is that, is Jerry Jones willing to let go of Dak Prescott? And I know that there was those things that came out about, him saying that, they're all in. That, and of course things can change, but he was pretty adamant, in terms of the fact that, they think their roster is great, and maybe after with some minor tweaks, they can still go out and win a Super Bowl. And if that's the feeling, then is Dak Prescott going to get traded? Because if your plan is to go out and get a younger quarterback or develop Trey Lance as the Cowboys, that's going to set you back a little bit. As you know, it's very difficult for young guys to just assume that role and then go all the way. Can't happen. Obviously, it's not outside the realm of possibility. But I think you definitely lower your stock in that kind of end goal of winning that Super Bowl. So it's a tough toss up, but I think I do agree with you. I think this is a buckle winner take just because I think we've seen what Dak Prescott can do and the limitations of what Dak Prescott can do. And I know that kind of sucks to say out loud and kind of like to kind of fully accept that, but it may be time to move on. And if there is an offer, then there has to be some part of, the whole Cowboys regime to really think about this and be like, you know what, if we have an offer now, are we going to have an offer next year? Or are we going to have to like just figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I want to make it clear that the chances of Dak Prescott actually being traded are basically zero. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. But I feel like it would be better for the team if it did than what they're considering right now, which is letting Dak Prescott play the year out and then trading
Yeah.
him. I know you mentioned Jerry Jones all-in comment. There was recently a segment on the Rich Eisen show where he was talking with Ian Rappaport, and they mentioned that some NFL insiders at the Combine claim that Jerry Jones all-in comment meant that they're going to focus on this year and just this year, and they're not going to hand out any extensions to any of their big name guys like Mike McCarthy, the head coach, or Dak Prescott, the quarterback, until they see what happens this year.
Yeah.
When Jerry Jones said all in, he wasn't saying like we're gonna just like sell the farm and
Yeah.
use our resources to go win this year. He was saying this year we're all in. This is a prove it year for not only the head coach but the quarterback and a lot of the other people we have on the team right now. So Mike McCarthy, his deal is expiring after this year. The
Yeah.
quarterback Prescott, his deal is expiring after this year. And it really seems like Jerry Jones is going to give them all one last chance together to go out, chase that ultimate goal of winning the Super Bowl. And if they can't do it this year, then it's over for all of them. The coach will be gone, the quarterback will be gone, and it's just going to be a complete and total rebuild for the Dallas Cowboys next year if we don't go farther in the playoffs than we did the past couple of years,
Yeah.
which is a terrifying prospect to think about. And it would certainly be nice to have some extra draft capital in our back pockets from a potential Dak Prescott trade for something like that. But like I said, based off of the contract and the cap and the no trade clause that Dak Prescott has, I think a trade would basically be impossible. Um, Obviously, nothing's totally ever impossible. And if I was the Cowboys, I would at least be trying to explore if it's something they could realistically do at some point, maybe with like cap and manipulation or something like that. Uh, but yeah, it's a really tough scene. I love Dak Prescott. He is my favorite player on the Cowboys by far because not only is he an amazing like MVP caliber quarterback, but he's a great leader and a great person. And you can just tell that, when you hear him talk or see all the charity events that he works for, does. Um, It'll be really sad to see him go if that's what ends up happening. And ultimately, I think that is what's going to happen. He's going to play out this year, and then he's going to be, a free agent, and he's going to go somewhere else. I'm really going to miss him if that happens, and it really stink not getting anything in return for him. But that's just the way the NFL works sometimes, sadly.
It's true. Yeah.
Speaking of trades, today, well, not today, yesterday, Jerry Jeudy got traded for a fifth and a sixth round pick from the Cleveland Browns to, no, from the Denver Broncos to the Cleveland Browns. Uh, so, Carson, what I want to say to you is that the Broncos made a big mistake trading Jerry Jeudy for such little return.
Yeah, I actually I think this is a bucked off take. I think that, what they got for Jerry Jeudy is going to help the Broncos in the future in terms of fixing, not even fixing, digging themselves out of the hole that they are in for this upcoming season, the next couple seasons in terms of money. And I think honestly, the Browns knew this. And the Browns went into this knowing, okay, we're not going to be giving you so much stuff for your wide receiver because we know that we don't have to oversell it. That you're willing, because the Broncos, of course, with letting Russ go, they're pretty much kind of not showing their hand necessarily because anything still can happen, but it's highly likely that they're going to be drafting a young rookie quarterback. And of course, with that being the case, they're also going to start to look to rebuild because that's, as I was mentioning with the Vikings before, you got to look to the division and how's your clear cut pathway to get to winning that ring. You have the Chiefs, you have the Chargers, and you have the Raiders. Now, the Chiefs and the Chargers are certainly the ones that are going to be who you're trying to compete with. The Raiders, I think, are going to also have another year where they're going to be searching for key pieces, maybe a rookie quarterback to help rebuild. But as the Broncos, you have some of these talented players like Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver, who, moving forward, he may not be a guy that necessarily is going to make or break the room of wide receivers. And if you're rebuilding and you're looking for assets to gain to rebuild, especially in a draft where there is a lot of top wide receiver prospects, especially when you hit some of the later rounds, of course, fifth and sixth, we'll see who's left over. But there's the ability to pick up some of these players that the Broncos direly need to fill some of these holes. Because as we've been talking with a lot of teams, some teams only have like one or two issues they need to focus on. Some teams have a whole plethora. And with that being the case, the Broncos are kind of in that position. And so I think Sean Payton is really looking at this not in terms of what do we do next year, as obviously as that is important, but what do we do in years to come? How can we challenge the Chiefs and the Chargers and of course the Raiders for the division? How can we carve our pathway to get to that Super Bowl? And I think that trading away some of these assets, such as Jerry Jeudy, is a step in the right direction for the Broncos to gather those key elements of draft picks to kind of help rebuild the team. I think that the Broncos, they didn't make a mistake for trading him for so little. I honestly think that's all they could probably get for him because it's no surprise that the Broncos are in a hole. I think any team wanting to do business in terms of trades with the Broncos kind of know that, at this time they're kind of in this rebuild phase. They're letting some of their bigger name guys, trading them away to get draft picks. Maybe you don't need to sell out. Maybe you don't need to, risk giving them a third or a fourth or maybe even a second. I don't know. And the Browns, I think, absolutely just walked away with a top wide receiver to help them, their offense, especially to help Deshaun Watson as they themselves are trying to recover from a deal where they haven't really profited from it yet. And so bringing Jerry Jeudy is obviously a win for the Cleveland Browns. But I think at the end of the day, the Broncos kind of had to cut their losses and just had to accept a fifth and a sixth because that might have been the best that they had on the table for him. And bringing in those draft picks, you never know. They could end up being stars. So I think bringing in those guys through the draft, whether that is a wide receiver, whether that's additional help with some of their other issues on the defense or offense side of the ball, maybe helping bring in some players for their potential franchise quarterback that they're going to be drafting this year. So yeah, I'll say that this is a bucked off take. I don't think the Broncos made a mistake for trading for so little. I think that they traded him for what they could get for him. So I don't think that they made a mistake.
Yeah, see, I completely disagree. I think they made a huge mistake trading him for how little they got in return. Maybe I'm still, a little upset about the whole Amari Cooper situation where the Cowboys traded him to the Browns for also just like a fifth round pick. And maybe, I'm just a little salty about that. But Jerry Jeudy, I love Jerry Jeudy. I was a huge fan of his coming out of college. He was the same draft class as CeeDee Lamb. He reminds me a lot of Amari Cooper, and I think that was kind of like his draft comparison as he was coming out of college because he is just one of the smoothest, cleanest route runners in the entire NFL. Not only that, but he has good natural athleticism. He's pretty fast. I think he's like a 4.4 guy, so not like the fastest dude in the league, but he definitely has good speed. And he, with his route running abilities, especially, he can create a lot of separation. Not only that, but I feel like every time I watch the Broncos, he would always stand out to me more than any other player on that offense. And they haven't had great quarterback play, especially over the past, 5 years, since Jerry Jeudy has been in the league. But he is a special player. And I think if they had just given him a chance, he would have proven his worth this year, assuming the Broncos managed to get like a competent quarterback. Uh, I think he would have had probably the best year of his career, and then they probably would have ended up franchise tagging him and working out like a long-term deal with him down the road. A fifth round pick and a sixth round pick, more likely than not, that will turn into players who don't even end up making the team. Most of the time, fifth and sixth round picks, they get cut in training camp. So likely, they traded Jerry Jeudy away for two players who will end up not being contributors at any point in their career. Now, obviously, there's always the chance that your fifth round pick could be like a Puka Nacua type guy, but that's like a really, really small possibility.
Yeah.
I think if they had kept Jerry Jeudy this year, they would have gotten more in return in like with a compensatory pick for letting him walk in free agency than they would have with just this fifth and sixth round pick that they got in this trade. Because I think the highest a comp pick can be is a third round pick. I think they would have at least gotten a third or a fourth for him after his performance that is coming this year, which would have been more than they got in return for him. So I think it was a really, really bad trade for the Broncos. They're not going to likely get anything of worth in return for Jerry Jeudy, and he's absolutely worth a lot because I think he's a great player, a young, super talented wide receiver in his prime, and those are hard to come by. So
Yeah, I should probably say that I do also agree with you with Jerry Jeudy. I think he's a great wide receiver. He's still a young guy that has done so much already, but just hasn't had the ability to really show off all of those skills with kind of mediocre play. One thing I wanted to ask you though, Rob, about this is, not necessarily going super deep into this, but if you were the Broncos and you're sitting on the situation that you have right now in regards to money, in regards to Russ not working out, you spent all this money and time and effort, picks, players to get him in the building. He's now going to be gone. What if not trading Jerry Jeudy, or let's say maybe trading him from, well, let's take out the consideration that Jerry Jeudy got traded. Let's go back. Like, what would you do if you were kind of the Broncos? Like, would you like how do you fix that situation without letting go of Jerry Jeudy?
yeah, that's a really tough question because they really got themselves in quite a pickle, by giving up all that draft capital for Russell Wilson and then giving him all that cap space and a brand new contract.
Yeah.
Um, But the thing is, if you want to rebuild your team, what you need are young, really good players at the most important positions. And that's what Jerry Jeudy is. He's an amazing player. He's super young, super talented, and at one of the most important positions in the game right now, wide receiver. I don't think you make your team better by getting rid of those players, especially for draft picks that usually will amount to basically nothing.
Mhm.
I think if you were going to try and make your team better by trading Jerry Jeudy, you would have needed to get more for him. And giving him away for basically nothing doesn't really make your team better. I think at that point you should have just kept him, saw what happened this offseason, and maybe looked into, extending his contract. Because, if he really didn't perform as well as he can, this year, maybe you would have gotten like a huge discount on an extension for him. And then once you did finally get like a capable quarterback under center, he would have, shown up and shown out, and you would have had this great young wide receiver under contract for really cheap. I think there's
Yeah.
other players on the team they could have, I would have probably traded Cortland Sutton instead of
Mm.
Jerry Jeudy. I don't think Sutton's anywhere near as talented as Jerry. If I was going to get rid of one of those two guys for salary cap reasons or whatever, it would have been Cortland Sutton, not Jerry Jeudy. Um, they do have like a relatively high first round pick this year. I think it's like number 12, right?
I think so.
Something like that,
11.
11, around that range.
Yeah.
The top 5 or 6 quarterbacks will still be there.
Hmm.
Um, so if you had kept Jerry Jeudy and even Cortland Sutton, and then you went and got one of those quarterbacks like Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, or JJ McCarthy, I think you would have had a good foundation to build around in the coming years as you finally move past that massive cap hit from Russell Wilson. No, you wouldn't have been competitive for a Super Bowl this year, but you would have had a good basis to stand on. And
Yeah.
I think next year, 2 years from now, who knows? Maybe you could have added some more pieces around that quarterback, fixed up the defense a little bit, fixed up that offensive line a little bit. And all of a sudden, you have a competitive team that can go out and win the Super Bowl. Trading Jerry Jeudy, I think, sets them back even further. Further, it puts them much further from their goal of being competitive for a Super Bowl. And now they have to go out and find another number one wide receiver because Cortland Sutton, I don't think, is that guy. So they just created another hole on their roster while getting almost nothing of value in return because fifth and sixth round picks, like I said, usually don't even end up making the roster at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So trading away a guy like that for nothing just really did not sit right with me. And it reminded me of the Cowboys' idiotic trade of Amari Cooper a couple of years ago.
Gotcha.
So we've talked about wide receivers, but now I would like to talk about running backs,
All
Carson.
right.
We already kind of mentioned Saquon Barkley, and in the news segment, we talked about how there were four main free agent running backs this year: Barkley, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs. Carson, I don't think any of those four running backs are going to end up back on the team that they originally started with.
Yeah, this is gonna be a hard one for me to say, especially. But I think that this is a buckle winner take. I think this is absolutely within the realms of reason. Um, I definitely don't think Saquon Barkley is going to be returning to the Giants. I think for him, there's just nothing really there, as we kind of talked about, for him to kind of want to play there. And I don't think that the Giants are going to be giving him big bucks either. So with both of those, without Super Bowl, without money, I think that he's going to try to pursue that elsewhere. Josh Jacobs, I think, is in the same boat. Um, Tony Pollard, yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to be trying to bring in somebody else. But the hard one, I think, for me to swallow and to still even think about happening is Derrick Henry not coming back to the Titans and not forever retiring as a Titan. And no, I'm not talking about when his career's over, he signs like one day and then he officially retires a Titan. Great. I hope you do that. But, you know, I think that, it wasn't, I was really sad actually, because obviously there's those rumors going around. I was at the game when Derrick Henry did his farewell speech, which for any of you that know Derrick Henry, he is a man of little words. So for him to go out and do that really says something. And of course, I know when I was sitting there and I heard it and I watched it happen, it was one of those things where I was like, well, of course he'll be back. Of course he's going to come back like that. Like, I guess he's just saying goodbye for now. And then, they're going to re-sign him and everything's going to be, happily ever after. But the way that free agency has been going, the way that, even I've been able to reflect on this Titans team moving forward, and I'm sure that this is the case for the Giants, for the Raiders, and even for the Cowboys. You really have to start to assess the situation of how much money are we willing to pay these guys, and if it's not what they want, well, then you're gonna have to let them go, for the sake of building your team to potentially, in the end, ultimately compete for that Super Bowl, whether it's this year or years down the road. And of course, there is no question that these four guys, if they're on your roster, they already make it better. But if there is nothing else going for it, and there's so many other holes on the offense and defense side of the ball, you really have to ask yourself the question, is one player going to be able to fix all those problems? And the answer is no. The answer is no. And so a couple of days ago, I actually ended up waking up for work. And on my phone, I got a notification that Derrick Henry unlikely to return. And of course, when you open that all up and the whole report, it was like, okay, there's still a possibility, but it's very unlikely. And that just, ruined my day. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, letting some of these guys go, especially Derrick Henry for me is he's been, a favorite player of mine. Um, Proudly wear his jersey whenever I can go. But realistically speaking and reasonably speaking, I don't think that any of these four guys are going to be returning to their rosters next year. I think they'll all be playing somewhere else.
Yeah, well, right now I'm actually leaning towards this being a bucked off take. And
Really?
the reason for that is only because Tony Pollard and the Cowboys seem to have some momentum towards getting a new deal.
Okay.
It seems like the Cowboys' plan at the running back position is to get a running back in free agency and then also draft one because they're losing their top two running backs this year, assuming Tony Pollard leaves. Uh, but what I've seen lately is that the Cowboys want to bring back Tony Pollard on a cheaper deal,
Hmm.
maybe like 5 million a year. And for Tony Pollard, that would mean he doesn't have to leave Dallas, move to a new city, all that sort of stuff. And I don't think he's going to exactly get like a much better offer anywhere else because this past season he really wasn't anywhere near as good as he has been previous years because he was coming off that injury. Now, towards the end of this year, he looked like his old self. He was much better in the last half of the season than he was in the first half. But for a lot of NFL teams that are just going to look at the body of his work and be like, well, okay, he didn't look anything like he did in years past. Why would they offer him any sort of, larger deal at all? And the truth is, I
Yeah.
don't think he will. So if you have, 6 or 7 teams all offering you 3, 4, $5 million, whatever it is, and one of them is the team that you've just spent the last 4 years on and you have like a house in the city and you know the city well, I feel like you're more likely than not to return to the team that you know. As for the other running backs, I completely agree. Saquon is definitely not going to return to the Giants. Derrick Henry is almost guaranteed not to return to the Titans. And I think I'd be shocked if Josh Jacobs returned to the Raiders, all because these teams know that in order to keep those running backs, they're going to have to spend, a significant amount of money. And honestly, in today's NFL, it's just not worth it to spend that amount of money on a running back. Honestly, I don't know where they think they're going to go to get that kind of money.
Yeah.
Um, because even teams like the Ravens or the Bears that we were talking about before for Saquon, they're not going to pay them the contracts that they want. So they're going to have to take a discount somewhere. I think for guys like Barkley and Henry and Jacobs, it's more about going to a winning culture right now than it is
Mhm.
about necessarily getting a big payday because I think they could probably get paid roughly the same even if they stayed where they were. Especially for Barkley, I think he wants to go somewhere where he can, win, as we talked about before. And Derrick Henry, obviously, he's in his 30s now, probably doesn't have too much time left as a, valuable NFL running back. So he wants to go somewhere where he can have an impact and contribute to a team winning. So I especially think those two will not return to their original teams. And Josh Jacobs, if he wants to be a winner, I don't think Las Vegas is the place to do it, at least not
Yep.
this season. So unless he just decides he wants to, stay with a team that he knows, um, which I don't think he will, I expect all three of those guys to find different homes tomorrow or over the next week or so.
Yeah. Yep. Alrighty. Well, shifting things a little bit, we kind of, discussed some of these takes in the NFL. We're going to shift a little bit to the UFL. And Rob, there was, of course, some big. I wouldn't even say. I mean, they were rumors. I would say I would go with that. Rumors about what happened in regards to the UFL draft and the Renegades drafting quarterback Lindsey Scott, trading up to grab him. Ever since that happened, people have been speculating that the Renegades, the Arlington Renegades, already have a quarterback in Luis Perez that won them the XFL championship last year. Why are they drafting a quarterback, especially a top prospect quarterback? There was some rumors that there may be a potential trade for a team that may be needing a quarterback. So Rob, the Renegades should not trade Lindsey Scott. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is a bubble winner. There's a couple of reasons. One, I think most of the time in these spring league football drafts, the players you're getting are not necessarily great. I mean, they're in they're in the spring league for a reason, and a lot of the established players in the spring league who are really good are already on teams. And so I feel like it's rare for a player coming out of college or whatever to choose the spring league over the NFL and actually, be capable of being a productive and talented player. So I'm not saying it never happens, but I think it's a lot more rare in a spring league football draft than it would be in the NFL draft. Lindsey Scott is one of those rare cases where I feel like you got a player who could be super talented, play really well, not just in the spring league, but also in the NFL. Because he played super well in college. It's just that, he wasn't playing against the best competition. So he never really got a chance to show what he could do against higher level teams. And that's why he's not in the NFL right now. It seems like to me he has all the talent in the world,
Yeah.
and he's young and he's exciting and he's a great player. But that does kind of raise the question of what do you do with Luis Perez then? Well, I think Luis Perez obviously won us a championship last year, but I think what is the only fair way to approach this is to have a quarterback battle in training camp and see which of the two quarterbacks performs the best. If Luis Perez, is still that championship winning quarterback, if he is still the guy from last year, then I think he'll have no problem outdueling Lindsey Scott. But if Lindsey Scott comes in and he's playing like the better guy, um, I think you got to keep him, and I think you got to put him in, even if he doesn't play like the better guy right out of the gate, just because he's so new. That's fine, but he's super talented and exciting, like I said. So let's say you play Luis Perez for 4 or 5 games and things aren't really working out. I think having that in your back pocket, being able to say, okay, well, we're going to put this dynamic young guy in instead and see what happens is really, really valuable. And I think it's much more valuable than nearly anything you could get in return for a trade. The only way I would say a trade is worth it is if you take Lindsey Scott and you trade him for like one of the better players in the UFL. Like if you took Lindsey Scott and traded him for like Ja'Cour Pearson or one of those guys, like one of those established like UFL superstars, then I would be comfortable with that. But outside of a trade for a UFL like really talented player, which I don't think is going to happen, I don't think it's realistic. I think it just makes more sense to keep Lindsey Scott because you don't really know what you have in him until you play him. And I think the Renegades would really regret it if they sent him to another team and then he ended up being like one of the better, if not the best quarterback in the entire league.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I agree. I think that this is a buckle winner take. Um, and the reason, is for a lot of the things that you just mentioned, Rob. I think that, you have a dominant quarterback in Luis Perez, who is arguably probably one of the best quarterbacks in spring football, has proven himself multiple leagues, multiple teams, won the big game for Arlington last year. And you know, having another guy who has a lot of potential in Lindsey Scott on your roster um, provides for not only a sense of quarterback battle, but it gives you a little bit of a safety blanket if something happens to Perez, God forbid. But also, at this time, I don't think the Renegades should do anything about trading Lindsey Scott. Maybe later in the season, maybe that could be something, or even later down the road. Maybe we're talking next season. Um, you know, I think with the UFL launching with this kind of new combined format with the USFL and the XFL, I think we're going to start to see the shapings of what we see in the NFL in terms of player worth and who's going to be standout and whatnot. And having a guy like Lindsey Scott as kind of like a trade partner or a trade pawn for later on um, is a key asset. And so right now it makes no sense for them to trade because there is, as you mentioned, some of those players in the spring league, you don't know their full potential. You may be like, oh, well, last year they played in the XFL and did this. Well, that's only 1 year. And for some of the USFL players that maybe played 2 years in a row, obviously their resume is a little bit longer, but still, there's still a lot of question marks, a lot of uncertainty with these rosters, especially with today, March 10th, being the time where they're going to even be cutting from 75 to 57. So we're going to see a lot of movement. But yeah, I agree. I think this is a buckle winner take. They should not trade Lindsey Scott. But I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility for a later trade, maybe next season.
I wouldn't even put it out of the realm of possibility for right now before the season starts because I know there's a lot of rumors swirling that that's the whole reason they drafted him was just to trade him for more than they spent to draft him. Um, but like I said, I just think it'd be much smarter to keep him because Luis Perez, as much as I love him, he has been inconsistent at times in his career, and he is like getting up there in age. So he's probably not the guy of the future just because of he's in his 30s now, and he's been inconsistent at times in the past. I love Luis Perez so much. He's probably my favorite spring league football player ever. But you got to plan for the future, and Lindsey Scott is the future of your team,
Yeah.
not Luis Perez. And I think if that future starts this season, fine. But if you're looking at future seasons, having a guy like Lindsey Scott, who probably should have been in the NFL, but's in the spring league instead and is young and exciting and dynamic, is the most valuable thing you can have at the most important position. And I think it would take a lot for the Renegades to move on from Lindsey Scott.
Yeah. And Lindsey Scott could be a Jordan Love equivalent, where he's taking some time, learning the scheme, learning stuff, and then when his shot comes, there we go. You plug him right in. So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, or like Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes.
Mhm.
You never know what's going to happen with those younger guys once they sit behind an experienced veteran who can teach them the ropes. I think it's the perfect dynamic. I think Lindsey Scott will learn a ton from Luis Perez, and I think that'll make him a better player. Speaking of UFL news, we mentioned before that Ja'Cory Pearson, the notable wide receiver for the UFL Battlehawks, was recently injured and will be sidelined for most of the season with a knee injury, probably going on IR for a while. So, Carson, I think the Battlehawks will not be a dominant offensive team because of this injury to Pearson.
I'm going to say that this is a bucked off take. It's a little, obviously, there is some truth to it because you're taking this dynamic receiver with everything he was able to do with Seattle last in the XFL season. Clearly was one of the top prospects at wide receiver in gaining for any team. The Battlehawks, I'm sure, and Battlehawks fans were super stoked to have him on the roster. And so, yes, I think that there is some now limitations with him being out for a couple weeks, but I don't think that that's going to remove the offensive threat that St. Louis has. And you have AJ McCarron, who's your quarterback. You still have Hakeem Butler, who probably is going to be stepping up into that wide receiver one with Pearson's injury. And you have a plethora of other offensive weapons to go around. And so that being the case, you have this kind of um this ability that yes, you lost a top receiver. Hopefully he comes back strong from that knee injury, but you have still other weapons. Whether that's, Austin Prohl, who did super well last season as well. You still have these players in place on the offensive side of the ball for St. Louis, that your offense is still going to be clicking. AJ McCarron, Prohl, and Hakeem Butler, they were all rocking it with St. Louis last season. So there's already some chemistry between those three guys. So yes, it is going to set them back a little bit, but I still think out of all the other teams in the UFL, the Battlehawks still have probably one of the most dominant offenses. So I think even though they are losing Pearson for, I know Coach Anthony Becht said approximately 6 weeks. So 6 games he's going to be probably out for. I really think that Butler, Prohl, and McCarron are going to be able to hold things down until he returns. So yeah, I think this is a bucked off take. I think the Battlehawks will still be dominant offensively.
See, I think this is a buckle winner. I think
Oh,
the Hawks will still have a good offense like they did last year, but I think the Ja'Cory Pearson signing was going to take them to the next level. Like
absolutely.
having all three of those guys on their wide receiver room, all playing at the same time with one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the UFL throwing them the ball. I think that was going to be an offense that broke records for, any spring league that's ever existed. It's going to be like the greatest show on turf, but in spring league instead of the NFL.
Yeah.
Not having Pearson, I feel like kind of brings them back down to earth a little bit. I still think they'll probably have one of the best, if not the best offense in the league this year, just because they have two really great wide receivers still and a great quarterback. But I think with Pearson on the field, it will be absolutely another level. That's like just unimaginable right now. Pearson, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the UFL right now. I thought he was absolutely, electric with the Sea Dragons last year. And I think putting him on the field with two other absolutely dominant wide receivers and a dominant quarterback is just going to make it impossible for teams to defend them. And I think when Pearson comes back, week 7 or whatever, that's when you will see the Battlehawks start to absolutely just dominate everyone. I think it'll be almost an impossible team to beat once they have that wide receiver trio. If they manage to get all 3 of those guys on the field healthy at the same time, I think they'll look completely different without him as they will with him. I think they'll still be really good. I just don't know if I'll say they're dominant without Ja'Cory Pearson on the field.
Gotcha. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Well, we are going to now move into our third segment of the show, the Redzone Rodeo Rowdy Rankings. And so today we kind of have a little bit of a dual ranking for you. We're going to be discussing the top 5 available free agents and then ranking the UFL uniforms as there's been some official releases of images of some of these uniforms, especially since the UFL has agreed to with a deal with Under Armour to produce the uniforms for the 2024 season. The Under Armour actually did that with the XFL last season, but the USFL was not through Under Armour, so they had to kind of re-alter a little bit. Not too much, but there is a couple changes. So with that being the case, we're going to be breaking those down in terms of our rankings as well. So, but first off, Rob, who do you think are the top 5 available free agents right now?
Yeah, and it's really exciting to get to talk about this right now because obviously the tampering period starts tomorrow. So in 24 hours, a lot of these guys might not even be free agents anymore. But as of right now, I think the 5th best available free agent at this moment is Danielle Hunter, the edge from the Minnesota Vikings. He's been absolutely just a dominant force off the edge his entire career. He had a great season last year, was among the top in the league in sacks. The only reason I have him at number 5 instead of higher is just because of his age. You know, he's 29, approaching 30, I think. So he would be a good, like, 1 or 2 year solution for a team, trying to find like a bookend for one of their defensive ends, but he's not going to be the guy for your team for like a long time. He's not a building block. He's a piece that will help you win right now. But he still has an extraordinary value for the next year or two at least because he's just one of the most dominant pass rushers in the entire NFL. And any team that gets him will, at least for this season and probably next season, really bolster their pass rush capability. Number 4, the same reason age is kind of making this guy lower on the list than he otherwise would be, is Cowboys left tackle Tyron Smith. He has been an absolute Hall of Fame level player his entire career. He's just a giant man with freakish athleticism who knows how to block. He's been an all-pro more times than I can count. He's just been the best left tackle in all of football, since he stepped on the field back in 2011, I think. He is 34. He does have an injury history, although the Cowboys found a way to kind of keep him healthy last year where they wouldn't make him practice at all during the week and then he would just play the games. And that seemed to reduce his injuries because I don't think he got hurt once after they started using that method. So assuming whatever team signs him will probably do the same thing. If you're one of those teams that's looking for like a short 1 year answer at left tackle because you think you're a competitor like the Kansas City Chiefs, this is the guy you should go out and get because he will be the best tackle in the league for you on the blind side. So yeah, if you're looking for a 1 year or 2 year answer at left tackle and you're a contender and that's something that you really need, this is absolutely the guy you should go out and get. Number 3, defensive tackle Christian Wilkins from the Miami Dolphins. I love Christian Wilkins. He is arguably one of, if not the best run defenders in the entire league. And he's also an amazing pass rusher, which is really saying something coming from the defensive tackle spot. The problem is that he's 28 right now. So if you're looking for, again, like a building block, like someone you want to build around, he might not be the best guy. But if you're a contender right now and you need some help on the defensive line, stopping the run and rushing the passer, this guy is brilliant at it. He can do it better than just about anyone. He's going to get a huge contract in free agency, undoubtedly. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the top three free agents available right now. At number two, I have the Jets edge rusher, Bryce Huff. For the past few years, he's kind of been like a rotational player, but like we mentioned earlier in the show, he is absolutely insane at rushing the passer. His pass rush win rate is off the charts, and it has been for years. So it's not like this is a one-off thing. He has consistently been one of the best pass rushers in all of football. And he's also only 25, 26, I think. So he could be one of those building block pieces for a team looking to, bring youth and establish like a core for a long time. He is really, really, really bad against the run. It's just like awful, which is why he was a rotational player with the New York Jets last year. So you have to keep that in mind. But as the NFL shifts away from running the ball towards passing the ball more, I think having someone who's as good at rushing the passer as he is just way too valuable for most teams to pass up. And I think that makes him the second most valuable free agent, just not just because of his pass rush ability, but also because of his youth. That's someone you could have as a building block. And I know the Eagles are very interested in signing him, so got my fingers crossed that he doesn't end up going to Philadelphia. Then at the number one spot, I have quarterback from the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins. Uh, in terms of pure football talent, maybe some of these other guys would be ahead of him, but he plays the most important position in the game. He is a franchise quarterback who can win you a lot of games, who can get you to the playoffs. And that's the most important thing for any team to have. And because he is that, and he's the only one available in free agency this year, I think that automatically makes him the most valuable free agent available. So he is number one on the list.
Gotcha. No, these are all great choices. Honestly, all of these players are difference makers immediately whichever roster they're going to be on. I'm surprised actually you don't have any of the top running backs in free agency. And there's also some other wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd. I think those guys could be top free agents as well for teams to look at. I get it's probably tough to narrow it all down. But yeah, why didn't you put any of the why isn't Derrick Henry in this list? That's my first question. Why? He should be number one. So
Okay, when I created this list, I wanted to look at the value a player would bring to the team.
yeah,
So first of all, running backs, just based off of their position, bring the least value of any other position in the entire NFL. Two,
that's fair.
most of those running backs are very old, which decreases their total value because they're only going to be there for like a year or two at most. So the value they add to the team isn't very high. For both of those reasons, I didn't include any of those running backs at the top five because I just feel like these premium positions like tackle and edge rusher and quarterback, they're
Yeah.
so much more valuable than any of those positions. It's not to say those running backs aren't good. It's just they're running backs, so they don't have as much value, and therefore they're not going to be in the top five. For the wide receivers, which is a valuable position, none of those guys are like top in the league at their position. They're not like top 10 wide receivers. T. Higgins is great. He's well, not T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd is great.
Yeah.
Curtis Samuel is great. They're all really good, like number two, number three wide receiver options, who are also in the later stages of their career. But they're not gonna, completely change the dynamic of your team. If you get a guy like Danielle Hunter or Bryce Huff, you are going to completely change the ability of your pass rush and therefore completely change the efficacy of your defense. So they're good and they're at an important position. They're just not great. Where these five players, I feel like, are all really great outside of Kirk, who I think is also just a really good player, but he's at the most important position in the entire game, which is why he's at number one. So that's why I don't have any of those running backs or wide receivers on the board right now.
So you're saying basically OBJ is your one wide receiver one to go out and get in
Yep.
terms of free agency. Yep,
Yes.
OBJ. That's your favorite.
I
Yeah.
think every team should just throw blank checks at OBJ because he deserves it.
Wow. I knew there was something that I didn't want to throw out his name because I thought you were gonna turn it back around on him, but yeah,
I thought it was just kind of implied that he's the most valuable player in the league. So like I didn't even need to list him. It's
that's
just
fair.
implied he is
That's
the most
that's fair.
valuable player.
And where's Baker Mayfield? Where is he on the list?
I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Carson. I know you really bought into the Baker Mayfield hype, and
I
I think he
did.
was last year, but I don't think he's going to be able to win a playoff game as a quarterback. I don't think he can do it. Whereas Kirk Cousins, I think he can, which is why
Yeah.
he's on the list, and Baker Mayfield is not. I probably have Baker in my top 10 just because I think he, if he continues to grow and get better, then maybe he could win a playoff game down the road. But just right now, I don't think he's that guy. So
That's fair. And yeah, of course, all jokes aside, I think that these top five rankings are pretty good, pretty good. As these guys, as Rob mentioned, as we've mentioned, these guys are game changers at their positions, and not only are they game changers, but whatever team they will end up on is going to be definitely thankful to have them there. As they just they're great players, and I agree. I agree. OBJ and Baker Mayfield may not fit the top five category, so or Derrick
yeah,
Henry, even though he's number one in my mind. So you can't take that away from me.
will always be number one in your heart, Carson.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna try to make it through. But all right. So shifting gears here, we're going back and forth, NFL, UFL, whatnot. But now I'm gonna be bringing to you all my rankings on the UFL uniforms. And I should say before I get into them, I'm honestly, my list may be completely different from your list. This is my personal opinion on how they look. And what I will be judging is, again, from the official photographs that have been submitted, or I shouldn't say submitted, uploaded, I should say, on the UFL official website, and a lot of the UFL hub and whatnot, those other news sources. So I know there's been some leaked content from some of the videos and that they've been trying to put out. Those videos haven't released yet. So I'm going to just be sticking with what has been released in terms of those photographs. And I'll be placing them up for y'all to see as well. But first off, um, at number 8, I have the Memphis Showboats. So the Memphis Showboats, I like what they're trying to do in regards to the yellow and navy blue. Um, but something that I just really dislike is the color on the shoulder, where the rest of the uniform it looks like it's a dominant color, it's blue, but that yellow that's just on the shoulder, it's just icky. I just don't like it. I just, the colors go well together, but overall, it's not great. Now, they could have incorporated yellow, like maybe going down the sides. It's a little incorporated in the number, but other than that, it's just this dominant, just yellow on top of the shoulders. I don't like it. I think it's 8. So they're at 8 for me. At number 7, we have the Battlehawks. Now, this one isn't just crazy because of the way they did the uniform. I really like the blue. I like the white, of course, with that helmet. Um, I think it's a great look overall, but I think it's just plain. I don't think there's really like anything too crazy going for it. It's just blue and white and gray. There's really not any nuances. I think this is the problem I have with even the Indianapolis Colts uniforms, where it just has that like white bar over on the shoulders. Like, what is that? First of all, I don't know. Like incorporate it better. But I do like the blue. I think it is great, but um, I think they could have done so much better in terms of making this really pop. And I know it was last year. They're kind of bringing over the same thing, but I'm going to put the Battlehawks at number 7. Now, at number 6, I have the Michigan Panthers. Now, the Michigan Panthers minus the helmet is not great. It's your standard just maroon, and I don't even know what color, gold, I guess, goldish color pants. But their helmet just makes it pop. The way that they're able to get the panther on the side, the way they're able to incorporate, the light blue on the shoulders, really kind of ties in with the limited light blue on the helmet. So it just all in proportion kind of bases itself out. So I do like the uniform within the helmet. But at the same time, it's like it's not popping for me. It's certainly better than the Battlehawks and definitely better than the Showboats. But it's clearly not the best on the list. So I have them at number 6. Now, number 5, I have the Birmingham Stallions. This uniform really gives me San Francisco 49ers vibes, which is obviously near and dear to Rob's heart. He loves the 49ers. So, I just love what they're able to do with this. The Panthers are kind of using that same kind of like goldish brown kind of color. But with this kind of red instead of the maroon, I think it pops more. And not only that, but it plays really well into their helmet. Um, and overall, I do think, kind of aligning yourself with that color of the 49ers, it kind of sets you in like this kind of like, oh, like it's a good team type kind of like connotation in terms of the color scheme, the way the uniform is, how it kind of replicates it in a way. But overall, both colors mold well together. The helmet is well designed. Not the best on the list, but I have them at number 5. At number 4, Rob, I have your Arlington Renegades. And I'll start off with the positives. I think that the color blue that they used is amazing, and that it is really, really well done. And the way that they have the black kind of traversing with the helmet, coming down over the shoulders, outline Renegades on right with the backdrop of the light blue. What I don't like is the red inside the number. Why did they go with the red inside the number? I don't know. I know that well, I should back up. I should say I know where the red comes from, and it comes from their old 2020 logo, where Rob and I are big Star Wars fans, and Rob's favorite character is Cad Bane, the bounty hunter. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, that's completely fine. But the logo looks like Cad Bane. And so the eyes are red, just like Cad Bane was and had in Star Wars. And so that being the case, like I understand where the red comes from. But once they switched over the logo to that, that R and the D kind of combined and or the A and the logo I'm not a huge fan of, but there's nothing else on their jersey that's red. So you have a dominant light blue jersey with, black intersecting when that obviously fits in with the helmet. But since they got rid of their what is now their secondary logo, what used to be their first logo on the helmet in 2020, there's nothing else that's really red. So it's just kind of like it's just kind of there, and there isn't really any connecting piece visually to why that should be red. Honestly, they could have made that black, and it would have been probably much better. But anyways, that's why I have them at number 4. I think they should incorporate either red somewhere else, but other than just the middle of the number. But anyways, that's my personal thought on it. They are at number 4. At number 3, I have the Houston Roughnecks. Now, I should probably say that, as much hate as I put on that kind of shoulder, that yellow shoulder part of their uniform that the Memphis Showboats had, that I put at 8, Houston does the same thing. Although I think what sets them apart from Memphis is that it's not a crazy color. It's not yellow. It's not like just in your face. Like that's what you see. The white on the shoulders really blends in well with kind of this one of I think the super most unique helmets. I'm still not fully on board with it myself, but the kind of the Texas flag oriented helmet fits really well on top of the uniform where the shoulders is white. And the numbers are, popping out of the white with their colors of navy and red. I really love what they did in terms of the numbers, how it kind of transitions from that blue into the red, just kind of really lines up well with the logo. And overall, these were really well designed. The only reason I don't have them higher is again that top thing on the shoulder. I don't know, incorporate something better with it. It's kind of just there, and I don't know. It just throws it off a little bit. It blends in well nice with the helmet, but with the rest of the jersey being navy, it just doesn't It just doesn't seem to fit. I feel like they could do something a little bit different than having just that solid white. Um, but anyways, that's why I have them at number 3. At number 2, I have the San Antonio Brahmas. What I really love about this uh, jersey combo is what they were able to do with the combo, with not the combo, with the collar. And the collar has this kind of really unique design, and it's unlike any of the other ones in the UFL. And outside of that, they just kind of have a kind of grayish black jersey with yellow on the shoulders. And outside of that, it's not really that great, but the collar makes it pop. And I would love to see this even in the NFL and incorporate in some of these teams because the way they were able to kind of intricately design that collar, it's really a great addition, and it's something that I really haven't seen in football, and so I love it on these uniforms. It fits well. It's simplistic, but it's not only just simplistic; it fits, and so the simplicity works here with this. And so absolutely, I love what they were able to do with the collar. That's why they are at number 2 for me. At number 1, the team that I think is just apart from all the other ones in terms of uniform design is the DC Defenders. Now, the DC Defenders, it looks like it's just like, oh, it's white and red. Those are the colors that they're using. I absolutely love what they were able to do in terms of this kind of like Arctic camo that they have on their helmets. But not only do they have it on their helmets, they have it inside the numbers and along kind of their shoulders. And I think that that was just such a great addition. It fits well with the Defender theme. Um, and on the field, it pops. It really does pop. And of course, far away, it doesn't seem like it because it's the camo's intricately designed. But when you have a much closer up shot of the helmet, much closer up shot with the whole uniform, it really pops. And hands down, I think the Defenders have the best uniforms in the UFL for the 2024 season, at least what has been revealed so far in the photographs that have been released. But there you have it. Those are my top 8 in terms of, well, there is 8 teams, so that doesn't really make sense. In terms of ranking all 8 of them, that is how I would do it, 1 through 8.
Yeah, well, Carson, I'm not a fashion expert like you are, but the only thing I think I would change about your
It's
list
going
is
too far. I am not a fashion expert too. I'm just basing off what I'm seeing with my eyes.
I would put the Renegades a little higher, just because I
Wow.
think that completely unbiased take here, but their
Yeah.
uniforms seem the best to me.
Oh,
I just
okay.
the red and the light blue all work together. Just really good stuff there. I don't know if any of these other uniforms come close to that, even to be honest. So
Can you explain why there's just a random red number on the jersey where red is just not even present?
because it's an ode to their old logo, like you were talking about. It's showing that it's still part of them, even though they
Oh,
don't
okay.
do much anymore. It's still there. It's still like right in the center of who they are as a team. It's right there. That's what it
Gotcha.
is. Mhm.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
I don't believe a single inch of that, but that's fine. That again, that is Rob's unbiased uh
Yeah.
choice
Completely
in terms of the uniforms for his own beloved Renegades. Um yeah, I will say I do like them. I love the light blue. I think that's really great. What are they doing with I don't know what they're doing with the red. That's really my question.
think the red is fine, but the question I did have for you, based off the uniforms, is how do you feel about the Michigan Wolverines uniforms, based off of your criticism of the gold and dark blue color scheme that Memphis has? Because it's
Yes.
basically the same thing as Michigan's uniform. So
Yes, and first off, it's not the Wolverines. This is the Panthers, Rob. You did say the Wolverines. That's fine. Uh,
I,
you
I
know
was
the
talking.
difference between the Wolverines and the Panthers? One of them won a national championship, and the other isn't going to even come close to winning the UFL championship. So
Ah,
that's going to be a hot take that I just said right now, but I just don't see it happening. Anyways, talking about the Panthers though and their uniforms. So the difference between them and the showboats is again, what are they doing with the shoulders? I don't understand what Memphis is doing with the shoulders. There's nothing. There's nothing to incorporate them. It's just a solid, just like yellow on top. And I don't get it. It's not good. It's just not good. The Panthers, what I like about them is even though it's simplistic, it fits. Like it really does fit. Like there isn't a part of their uniform that's just like, why is that there? Like it's not they're not doing anything crazy, but the helmet and how it's like designed with the panther coming up with the light, as I mentioned, with that light blue, it has the light blue on the shoulders, and it fits well because the helmet isn't maroon, but the panther is, and so it fits with the jersey, and then you have that kind of uh the color of the helmet in a way. Of course, it's not necessarily the same color, but in terms of like the pants that they're wearing, it just all in all it fits. They're not trying to do something crazy, but overall it does fit. What Memphis is doing just doesn't fit. It's like they were like, how can we take like a simple auto-generated uniform and put it on a team? That's basically how I feel what that happened with that.
I feel like the Panthers uniform is just like a worse version of the Stallions because it's like the same color scheme. So I don't know how you could have him so high, but okay.
The Stallions I have higher than the Panthers because I think the color combo the Stallions have pops more than the maroon and the goldish color that the Panthers have. Um, but I think the Panthers helmet fits a lot better. Well, no, the Stallions helmet fits a lot better than the Panthers. Honestly, any of these uniforms are better than the Memphis Showboats. They're just not. The Showboats are just bad. I don't like. I like the logo. I like the helmet, and then they stopped at that, and then they were like, "Oh, let's just not go with like let's not try to be creative when it comes to the uniform." So yeah, I don't know. I think again that's my personal opinion. I'm sorry if I'm offending Showboat fans out there, but it's just not good. It's just not good.
So do you also hate the Michigan Wolverines uniform, like the college football team, because it's like the same color scheme as
I do. I do not like Michigan. No. As a Hawkeyes fan myself, I've seen them torment my boys more times than not. But what at least with Michigan, they don't have this just gold thing that Memphis has, and their helmet has at least a really cool artistic like Wolverine, like claw mark on the back of the helmet that's like you know it looks cool, it's cool and it fits. I don't know what the Showboats are doing. It's not like it's not really that cool and it doesn't fit. So yeah.
well, speaking of things that are not cool, I was thinking maybe we should get to our next segment, the Redzone Rodeo Clowns of the Week.
All
This
right.
is where we're going to tell you about takes or, other stuff going on in the football world that we just think is kind of silly. It's not great. So those are our Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week. The first one that I just wanted to talk about, Derrick Henry, your favorite running back ever, bought
Yes.
a house in Dallas this past week. And there was a lot of discourse among Cowboys fans. They were saying, you know what? That means he's going to sign with the Cowboys in free agency. That's like a precursor. And it's just, no, no. This man is a multimillionaire who owns multiple properties. And having one in the state of Texas does not mean he's signing with the Cowboys. That just means he wants to live in a state with low taxes. It has nothing to do with where he's going in terms of football free agency. So I just thought that was absolutely silly. It was probably one of the silliest things I've seen in terms of Cowboys discussion this week. So, absolutely, this whole situation is part of the Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. There was even a bit that I saw where it circulated actually a lot with Titans fans. I actually was surprised because it literally looked like someone took a picture of a blue Jeep that had like a cowboy, like the back tire. Maybe you saw it. I don't know, but the back tire had like a cover that said Dallas Cowboys on it. License plate was scratched out, and people were saying that that was like Derrick Henry's new car. And I was just, I just so wanted to like ask the question. I was like, how do we know? How do we know this wasn't some random person that just took a picture of a blue Jeep in a parking lot with the Dallas Cowboys, scratched out the license plate, and then was like, he's going to Dallas. It's proven. Like, I want to know, I seriously want to know who like knows Derrick Henry is like, this is the new car he bought. The parking lot didn't even look fancy. It was like a Walmart parking lot. Obviously, it wasn't Walmart, but like that's what it looked like. And I was just like, who, first of all, knows which car Derrick Henry like has recently purchased? First of all, I feel like he wouldn't be buying it. I think it was a it was a Jeep Rubicon or something like that, which I feel like is something that Derrick Henry would not be driving anyways. That's my just personal take. I feel like he's more of a Grand Cherokee type guy. But anyways, that's that points aside. I was so surprised at that. And of course that led up to a bunch of the rumors that he's gonna go to Dallas. He's gonna be a cowboy. And
Yeah, I feel like Derrick Henry is smarter than that too, because
I know.
if if he was like broadcasting to the whole world that he signed with the Cowboys before the legal tampering period started, the Cowboys would be in a ton of trouble. So if
Hmm.
it comes out that there was some sort of secret deal in place, and that's why he bought this house in Dallas and got apparently a Jeep with the Dallas Cowboys, that would just completely screw over the Cowboys. They probably have to forfeit like their first round draft pick this year. It would be like the worst case scenario. So honestly, anyone telling you that any of this means that Derrick Henry is coming to the Cowboys has no idea what they're talking about, and this deserves to be a red zone rodeo clown of the week, undoubtedly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing that I think deserves a Red Zone Rodeo Clown of the Week is this whole notion that has been circulating around that the NFL should adopt the XFL kickoffs. I honestly, I when I saw this circulating, like there's a little part of me that understands like, okay, well, the kickoff was, the rule was brought into the XFL to try to reduce injuries. But the remainder, large part of my brain was like, what? Because literally, like the XFL kickoff only lasted, according to my knowledge, for one season in the XFL. I don't even think they had it in the 2020 XFL. Um, but it lasted for one season. It wasn't great. It looked stupid. And like personally, I have never seen a lot of injuries that transpire on like kickoffs and kick returns. I know it happens, but that's saying like, oh, you know, we're gonna try to stop a part of the games in like injuries happen. Like you don't know when they're going to happen. You can't completely avoid them. It's just the unfortunate part of contact sports. But for them to basically and for it to be circulating around that they're going to adopt the XFL kickoffs, the UFL didn't even decide to have it in their league. They removed it. They were like, this was a bad idea. Like not necessarily in terms of player safety. It's just it looked weird. It didn't catch, and they're like, we're not going to do it. But now the NFL is thinking, oh, we're picking it up. We may implement it to reduce injury. As no, I this deserves a rodeo clown of the week because I this is such a stupid idea, and anyone that thinks that this is going to transpire to affecting the NFL, I can't see it. It wasn't even no one wanted them in the XFL, so like why would they want to? Why would they want to bring it to the NFL, which has a much more bigger following? I feel like there would be just a uproar if it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It's dumb that the NFL is considering this. And honestly, I have to apologize as a Cowboys fan because apparently our special teams coordinator, John Fassel, is leading the charge to bring this kickoff to the NFL, which is just, it's terrible. It's such a
Yeah.
bad thing to watch. Like, it's not fun to watch.
Mm-mm.
If you're going to make the kickoffs bad, you might as well just get rid of them. I think I'd rather have no kickoff than like a bad kickoff because a
Yeah.
bad kickoff is just boring and pointless and waste time. If the
Hmm.
kickoff isn't going to be like an exciting play where something can happen, why do you even have it? Just automatically bring the ball out to the 25-yard line every time. If that's
Yeah.
what you're going to have like this, watered down version of it. Why even have it in the first place? It's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
You know, it's so incredibly bad. Absolutely deserves to be a take that's covered in the NFL Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week. segment. It's so unbelievably disgusting and wrong and bad. And you're right. If the UFL themselves aren't even doing it, why is the NFL? The UFL is like, this is a horrible idea. Why would the NFL be like, oh, well, that's what we should do? What even the
Yeah.
spring league isn't going to do is what we should like. It's so, oh, it makes me sad. It
Yeah.
makes me sad.
I swear, if this actually ends up happening, there's going to be an uproar. I swear, there will literally be an uproar of people who even have watched the XFL. I honestly don't know of a single XFL fan that like watched it last season that like would pull for this, or pulled for the XFL kickoff to remain in the spring league, in the new spring league, the UFL. It really just seemed like everyone was like, this was kind of a scratch when it came to ideas that we had, and we're not going to move it. We're not going to have it moving forward in the spring league. And now, yeah, the NFL is no. So, write it off. Not happening.
Absolutely clown behavior. Speaking of absolutely clown behavior, just one axe I have to grind is Jerry Jones saying that he is all in this season. Okay. When he said that, everyone immediately thought that meant there was going to be like big free agent signings and the Cowboys were going to try their best to win this year. But instead, they're not going to do anything in free agency. They let Tyron Smith walk, and now Dak Prescott might not even be back next year. What is going on? If your definition of all in is just making this like a lame duck year for all your guys, that is completely different than what you were saying. Why would you go around telling everyone that this is the year you're finally going to make a change and go out there and be aggressive when this is probably the worst you've managed the team in an offseason since you drafted Dak Prescott? This is by far the worst team we have had since Dak Prescott was drafted in 2016. And okay, Jerry, I would love if you went out and proved me wrong and signed some big names in free agency or at least impact players. They don't even have to be big names. You know, the linebacker from Tennessee, Aziz Al-Shaair. I love that guy. He's not going to
No.
be a he's not going to get a big contract, but he's a great linebacker. And if you bring him to Dallas, maybe I'll bite my tongue a little bit and be like repentant. But if you just sit pat and don't do anything this free agency, then you deserve to be a Redzone Rodeo clown of the week for using the term all in and getting all of the Cowboys fans' hopes up to just sit on your hands and do nothing.
Yeah, no, that's good. Although I will say, I really hope Aziz Al-Shaair comes back to Tennessee because he was a big playmaker this year, and I think it's going to be a mistake if the Titans don't at least attempt to re-sign him. But yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that whole thing that stirred up so much chaos when it was just like, yep, we're all in. It's yeah. Speaking of big kind of blunder moments, Aaron Rodgers has said that he is likely going to play 4 more years in the NFL. And honestly, for those who may not know, Rob and I are not big fans of Aaron Rodgers for a plethora of reasons that, to be honest, this show would be endless if we decided to get into them all. But I think that Aaron Rodgers deserves to be the Redzone Rodeo Clown of the Week because of this statement that he's going to play for 4 more years. Now, I can see him playing for, maybe 1 or 2 more seasons. But if it doesn't work out in New York for him, I think he's gonna be done. I think if with his age and even what he's able to accomplish on the field, I just don't see 4 more seasons um, playing in the league. I definitely don't see him playing 4 more seasons for the New York Jets. But yeah, 1 to 2 max is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he's just jealous of Tom Brady and he wants to play as long as he did until he's like 44, 45. And that's why I said that. There's no chance he's going to last that long in the league.
Yeah,
It just can't happen. He's already so frail. He already had that one injury. Like as soon as he stepped on the field last year, he cannot last that long.
yeah.
Like you said, maybe 1, maybe 2 years tops, but that's it. And that'll be the end.
Yeah. And there was also some speculation that like, oh, well, he said this because there's some spoken words in the New York Jets like front office that they may be interested in taking a quarterback in the draft. I don't believe that necessarily. And so there was some speculation that Aaron Rodgers was saying that to kind of, you know, quell the thoughts of, oh, bringing in a Jordan Love-esque and having it repeat where you have a guy coming in and you draft him a while ago and people are like, when that happened, when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, they were like, what are you doing? And then we saw why. And he came out and arguably played even better than Aaron Rodgers had played in Green Bay for the most recent seasons. Maybe that's a step too far, but maybe maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to have a repeat of this happen, which I thought was interesting. But still, like, why would you? You're a rodeo clown, man. Just go home, play a
Dude,
season, and go home.
that's got to be Aaron Rodgers' like worst nightmare to have the team that
Yeah,
he's on the first round pick to draft a quarterback again instead of using
yeah,
it to get help. Oh my goodness, that would be so funny. What pick do the Jets have again? Do they have a first round pick this year?
they do. It's I think isn't it 10? Is it 10?
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Am I off with that? But I think it's 10. So yeah, it's relatively high. I mean, they have the ability to go out and get a wide receiver. They could potentially get Brock Bowers if he falls to them. They could get a good offensive line. There's a lot of options for them. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think they're at 10. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be going quarterback, but wouldn't that be funny if they shock the entire world and they pick up one and it's just, but I mean, I guess I could see it. I know you have Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, stepping out on the field, and I know that was just like you know, a crazy thing to happen, but the question really you have to ask yourself is, I don't think they're going to draft a rookie to do this, but I'm sure they would sign someone like Gardner Minshew or some of these other guys that are out there. But what happens if Aaron Rodgers goes down again? Because I mean, last season the Jets were in the prime to make a push, and then they lost Aaron Rodgers, and it all kind of started to fall apart. So like
Yeah.
I think there is some definitely thought behind, like, okay, who are we going to bring in that if he goes down, if the old man Aaron goes down, what are we gonna do? Like, who are we gonna go with? Because
Especially since Zach Wilson might be on his way out of town.
exactly, yeah, yeah, because that Zach Wilson leaving, they had Boyle, I think, as their third string, Tim Boyle.
Well, yeah.
So and that obviously wasn't great. So you know. But I will say, I think the greatest thing that Zach Wilson and the Jets have done is beat the Eagles. That was last season. That was crazy to see. And I will certainly not be letting any Eagles fans lose that, because that in itself is a rodeo clown, a red zone rodeo clown, to lose to the Zach Wilson and the Jets. But anyways, I digress. Aaron Rodgers to play 4 more years. Shut up, man. You're a rodeo clown.
Zach Wilson will always hold a special place in my heart for helping the Cowboys win the division this year. Because if he hadn't beaten them, then we would not have won the division. So thank you, Zach Wilson. I'm on your side always. That was the
So you're
last.
saying, so you're saying trade Dak Prescott, bring in Zach Wilson. Is that the train you're on?
Yes, Carson. That's exact. I want Zach Wilson and Trey Lance on the same team
Wow.
together. Dream team of high pick quarterbacks there. Can't
Unstoppable.
Absolutely unstoppable. No one is beating us once that happens. Just the two best quarterbacks ever on the same team.
Absolutely. Yeah,
It would be unfair.
it would be. Talk about the Ravens being unfair and the 49ers being unfair. No, this would be the new unfair.
We'd have to develop some sort of like two quarterback formation to have them both there at the same time, just let them absolutely dominate together.
Exactly. Yeah. Unstoppable. First of its kind.
Force of nature is probably
Yeah.
the only way to really describe that. Well, speaking of just like absolutely terrible, horrendous takes, the last thing we're going to talk about here on our Red Zone Rodeo Clown of the Week is a take we actually had. What was it, like 2 episodes ago now? Maybe, right? We
Yeah.
said that Mike Evans, well, at least I know I was very adamant about this. Mike Evans was going to be signed by the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. And literally, not even a week after we made the whole segment about that, he re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for what was it, like a 3-year contract or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 3 or 2 years, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, so we are Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week because we had had some not so great takes on this show. I mean, we had some good ones. Okay, the Russell
Yeah.
Wilson Pittsburgh Steelers thing we said last week, I thought that was spot on. Seems like it might work out. But if it doesn't, then maybe that will also be on the Red Zone Rodeo Clown of the Week next
A
week.
future Red Zone Rodeo Clown of the Week.
Yes, exactly. But as of right now, we are Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week because we said Mike Evans was going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of takes that are out there. And, I don't have the percentage because I'm not going to do the math, but a good portion of them certainly don't end up being true. But they're still fun to talk about. And, no matter how bad the takes are, we're still going to bring them to you. And whether we deem them Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week or we even break them down in our Red Zone Rodeo Go Rounds, we may be wrong, we may be right, but hey, we're going to be here through it all. So sometimes it's even more fun to look back on some of the things that we thought were going to happen and laugh about it. Like my take that I thought that the Dolphins were going to come into Kansas City, cold Kansas City, and whomp them. It didn't happen. That was awful. Why did I think that? I don't know. Maybe that should remind me not to go with my gut, but hey, we laugh all the way through it all, and eventually we'll make some good ones as well. So
Didn't you pick against the Chiefs every single game in the
I
playoffs?
yeah, I think I did. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then I rooted for them in the Super Bowl. Yeah, that was yeah. I know. Crazy, crazy stuff. But hey, you know what? You can't be right all the time. So at
Yeah,
least
I
it
mean,
proves I'm human.
yeah, being wrong is half the fun because then we get to do this and look back at it and laugh. And
Exactly.
there's absolutely, I think most of the people watching would agree with this, but one of the most fun things you could ever do is just sit around with your buddies and talk about football. And we are so lucky that we get to do that and, record it and share it with everyone. So, yeah, just thank you guys for watching and, letting us do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Just echoing what Rob said. We hope you all enjoyed our kind of I would say new format that we're kind of launching with our different segments. And as I mentioned in the beginning of them, if you have any, questions, comments, anything, thought ideas on what we should do, what we should cover, let us know in the comment section. We love to hear from you guys, and it's always more fun when it's a community. So thank you for helping us build this great community. And we're going to keep on giving you great stuff and producing some great content for you. We may be Red Zone Rodeo Clowns of the Week, but, eventually we'll hit on one of our big takes. So eventually. But yes.
Absolutely. You'll have to stick around to find out which one, though.
Absolutely. That's true. That's true. If you love what we do and you want to support the channel, please think about liking and subscribing, helping us grow the channel, sharing it with your friends. We absolutely would appreciate that, and love all the people we get to reach through our videos. So thanks so much, and we will be with you next week to be breaking down what's going on in the football world in terms of the UFL and the NFL. Should be a big one with free agency.
Yeah.
Coming up. So anyways, guys, hey, have a great rest of your week. We're going to sign off for the night, and we'll be with you next week. So keep your eyes open for our next videos. Thanks for all the constant support, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you all.